But play is a shapeshifter, and it can take many forms, and some of which are more quiet, imaginative, curious, maybe where wonder is discovered. And the secret is that play is the key to these capacities. In other words, play is our adaptive wildcard. In order to adapt successfully to a changing world, we need to play. Play is not frivolous. Play is essential. Life is not just read in tooth and claw. In times when it seems least appropriate to play, it might be the times when it's most urgent.
And this image is, for humans, the beginning point of play. When that mother and infant lock eyes, and the infant's old enough to have a social smile, what happens spontaneously is the eruption of joy on the part of the mother, and she begins to babble and coo and smile, and so does the baby. If we've got them wired up with an electroencephalogram, the right brain of each of them becomes attuned, so that the joyful emergence of this earliest of play scenes and the physiology of that is something we're beginning to get a handle on. And I'd like you to think that every bit of more complex play builds on this base for us humans. The human hand in manipulation of objects is the hand in search of a brain, the brain is in search of a hand, and play is the medium by which those two are linked in the best way. Frank Wilson's a neurologist, Nate Johnson is a mechanic. He taught mechanics in a high school in Long Beach and found that his students were no longer able to solve problems. And he tried to figure out why, and he came to the conclusion quite on his own that the students who could no longer solve problems such as fix cars hadn't worked with their hands. Frank Wilson had written a book called The Hand. They got together, JPL hired them. Now JPL and NASA and Boeing, before they will hire a research and development problem solver, even if they're summa cum laude from Harvard or Caltech, if they haven't fixed cars, haven't done stuff with their hands early in life, played with their hands, they can't problem solve as well. So play is practical, and it's very important. So what does play do for the brain? Well, a lot. Nothing lights up the brain like play. Three-dimensional play fires up the cerebellum, puts a lot of impulses into the frontal lobe, the executive portion, helps contextual memory to be developed.
What you're saying is that there may be some temptation on the part of people to look at your work and go, and I think I've heard this in my kind of pop psychological understanding of play, that somehow the way animals and humans deal with play is that it's some sort of rehearsal for adult activity. Your work seems to suggest that that is powerfully wrong.
Yeah, I don't think that's accurate, and I think probably because animals have taught us that. If you stop a cat from playing, which you can do, and we've all seen how cats, bat around stuff, they're just as good predators as they would be if they hadn't played. And if you imagine a kid pretending to be King Kong or a race car driver or a fireman, they don't all become race car drivers or firemen. So there's a disconnect between preparation for the future, which is what most people are comfortable in thinking about play as, and thinking of it as a separate biological entity. And this is where my chasing animals for 4 or 5 years really changed my perspective from a clinician to what I am now, which is that play has a biological place, just like sleep and dreams do. And if you look at sleep and dreams, biologically, animals sleep and dream, and they rehearse and they do some other things that help memory and that are a very, very important part of sleep and dreams. The next step of evolution in mammals and creatures with divinely superfluous neurons will be to play. And the fact that the polar bear and husky, or a magpie and a bear, or you and I and our dogs can cross over and have that experience sets play aside as something separate. And it's hugely important in learning and crafting the brain. So it's not just something